Hi everyone.
Greetings.
We are in the Proclaimer's book on page 177 in the chapter Recognized by Our Conduct. What about divorce is the subheading, and we'll read the whole subheading before we talk.
Trying to control ourselves.
Yeah. Starts, in Western lands, polygamy is not widely practiced, but other attitudes that conflict with the scriptures are in vogue. One of these is the idea that it is better to get a divorce than to have an unhappy marriage. In recent years, some of Jehovah's Witnesses began to imitate this spirit, suing for divorce on such grounds as incompatibility. How have the witnesses dealt with this? A vigorous campaign of education as to Jehovah's view of divorce is regularly conducted by the organization to benefit longtime witnesses, as well as the hundreds of thousands who are being added to their ranks each year.
To what Bible guidelines has the Watchtower directed attention? The following, among others. In the Bible record of the first human marriage, the oneness of husband and wife is emphasized. It says, a man must stick to his wife and they become one flesh. Later, in Israel, the law prohibited adultery and prescribed death for any who engaged in it. Divorce on grounds other than adultery was allowed, but only because of their hard-heartedness, as Jesus explained in Matthew 19. How did Jehovah view the practice of discarding one's marriage mate in order to marry another? Malachi 2:16 states, he has hated a divorcing. Yet he allowed those who got a divorce to remain in the congregation of Israel. There, if they accepted Jehovah's disciplining of his people, their heart of stone might in time be replaced with a softer heart, one that could express genuine love for his ways.
The Watchtower has frequently stated that when Jesus was discussing divorce, as it was practiced in ancient Israel, he showed that a higher standard was to be instituted among his followers. He said that if anyone divorced his wife, except on the ground of fornication, in brackets it's got porneia, unlawful intercourse, and married another, he would be committing adultery. And even if he did not remarry, he would be making his wife a subject for adultery. Thus, the Watchtower has pointed out that for Christians, any divorce is a far more serious matter than it was in Israel. While the scriptures do not direct that everyone obtaining a divorce be expelled from the congregation, those who also commit adultery and are unrepentant are disfellowshipped by the congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. Revolutionary changes have taken place in recent years in the world's attitudes regarding marriage and family life. Despite this, Jehovah's Witnesses have continued to adhere to the standards provided by God, the originator of marriage, as set out in the Bible. Using those guidelines, they have endeavored to help honest-hearted persons to cope with the difficult circumstances in which so many find themselves.
As a result, dramatic changes have been made in the lives of many who have accepted Bible instruction from Jehovah's Witnesses. Men who were formerly wife beaters, men who did not shoulder their responsibilities, men who provided materially but not emotionally and spiritually. Many thousands of such have become loving husbands and fathers who care well for their households. Women who were fiercely independent, women who neglected their children and did not take care of themselves or their home. Many of these have become wives who respect headship and pursue a course that causes them to be dearly loved by their husbands and children. Youths who were brazenly disobedient to their parents and rebels against society in general. Youths who were ruining their own lives by the things they were doing and thus bringing heartbreak to their parents. Not a few of these have come to have a godly purpose in life, and this has helped to transform their personality. Of course, an important factor in success with the family is honesty with one another. Honesty is also vital in other relationships. Lots to say. I guess it starts with this mocking of the spirit of the world, certainly opposing the spirit of the world when it comes to the new divorce permission for incompatibility. Well, we're getting the impression very clearly in the last few years that the Watchtower itself has dropped this standard dramatically, in that they are now allowing people to get divorced for what amounts to, the phrase is spiritual adultery, right?
Yeah,
if they're opposed to God's organization.
So if your mate leaves the Watchtower, or is disfellowshipped, or speaks against the Watchtower, that now has become spiritual adultery. We've heard this from a number of people who have left, and their mates have divorced them, sometimes without any efforts being made
To reconcile?
to reconcile at all. They just separate, and they're advised to divorce.
Yeah, it's not like it was in my day. When I was an elder, we would bend over backwards to try to keep a marriage together, even with an unbeliever. And the only real grounds even for separation in those days was physical violence.
Yeah.
And constant threat of violence if there was a track record. Certainly we would never encourage them to separate, even, let alone divorce, a mate who opposed the Watchtower and just didn't believe.
Yeah.
Even a mocker. This is not grounds for separation in my day.
This scriptural advice too, I don't know if they quote it here, I don't think they do, but about you not being the one to initiate it either.
Yeah.
Paul makes that quite clear.
Yeah.
That if an unbeliever wants to leave a believing mate, fine, but you don't initiate it.
Yeah.
You stay. If they're willing to stay with you, you stay.
No, we've seen a couple of examples. We heard this early on when we started our channel, of people who contacted us who said, no, my wife just walked and got a divorce without any kind of communication between lawyers, or between the mates, or between the families, or between the congregation and the individual who was being shunned. So something's changed. So if you have information about this out there, or experiences, maybe you can get in touch with us and let us know what's happening. Because where's the permission for this? This book itself would seem to discourage any such tendency, right?
Yeah.
It talks about headship in here a lot, praises headship. But then you realize what you're permitting now, it would seem, is org to take over as head of the family. If that's your supreme loyalty. So if your unbelieving mate does not show due respect for org, then you have basically broken the marital covenant, something like that.
Yeah. I would say in our day, we had lots of people with very good marriages, but sometimes it was the appearance of a good marriage, but it wasn't a good marriage. So afterwards, even before I was disfellowshipped, I heard of people, and I was surprised, elders who had been mistreating their wife.
Physically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I had known nothing about it. So I think sometimes we're a little bit blind to things that are going on. But where they follow biblical standards, they're going to do well.
I remember 2 instances back in the 70s when I was not yet an elder, where I was shocked and others were shocked when mates committed adultery.
With another congregation member.
Both got disfellowshipped. And then within a couple of years, the new couple, now married, was reinstated by the congregation. These kind of things were pretty shocking then, and I don't doubt they besmirched the reputation of the local congregations, if not the Watchtower. But how could you get permission from the organization
why reinstate them
to put a blessing on such a remarriage? Yeah. And then in the latter paragraphs here on page 178, they've got references that just bug me. They have endeavored to help honest-hearted persons, and honest-hearted is now one word. And then this reference before they go to the next subhead to honesty is also vital in other relationships. And the trend within the Watchtower to not listening to your mates, not even giving an ear to your mates, even if your mates use scripture, and this is the shocking way it's passed now. It's not just a mate who's mocking religion or mocking the org. It's a mate who has biblical beliefs but doesn't believe that the Watchtower is God's anointed.
So we knew of an example like that too, of a man who becomes a Christian, and his wife is a witness, and he, he's trying to take the lead as being the head of the home, and so he wants them to read Bible together. And first she cooperates, and then no, this isn't right, so it's and advised against it, really, because he's not a witness, so you can't read the Bible with him and discuss it.
We have all kinds of stories now of men, especially men, it seems lately, but also women, who have become more serious as Bible readers and Bible students since they left the org, but still can't have spiritual conversations with their mates because that would be somehow being disloyal to the organization.
Even when I was in the process of leaving the witnesses, that was something I said to my parents. Why are we being told that if I disagree with the Watchtower, we can no longer have conversation as a family and discuss these things? I want to discuss them. I love the Bible, I love God, you love the Bible. Why aren't we allowed to talk together?
And it does betray the real bottom line is org has now become the head of the family. The org has taken over, and all loyalty must be directed to org. Any profession on the part of a baptized witness who has left the organization, any profession of faith or sincerity or diligence in doing Bible study doesn't count for anything, because you're still encouraged to judge their hearts. So in effect, you can divorce a goat. You have judged the person to be a goat by the presumption that their heart attitude must be wrong. If they were honest hearted, they'd be members of God's organization.
And that's not encouraging communication, let alone honesty, when you're not allowed to speak about what you are convinced of, or your convictions, or your discoveries, where you're not allowed to talk about those things. You're breaking down the honesty within a family or within a marriage.
Yeah, all based on the fact that you've prejudged them as unworthy of eternal life, and therefore they are goat-like personalities. They're guilty of spiritual adultery if they break away or even state their opposition to or criticism of the Watchtower. They're guilty of spiritual adultery. What's our link?
We're linking to the first of 4 videos that we did on marriage. So Jehovah's Witnesses and marriage is the first one. Does JW Org teach covenant commitment, unconditional love?
All 4 are good. I think we've linked number 2 quite a bit, the one on Jeremiah 31 that changed your thoughts on this. But number 1, start at number 1, and all 4 of them have to do with the latter 2 are on Romans, I think. The second one is on Jeremiah.
Good.
See you soon.